This broadcast is part of a fictional program. The station and events depicted are not real. This audio is created for narrative and entertainment purposes only.
This is LWB 1713 AM last warning broadcast. If you can hear this transmission, conditions have already escalated beyond control. Good morning, Thessaloniki. This is Nikos Eliadis. You're listening to Paralia Morning on 98.4, and it is, let me check, 6:22 on Saturday, June 21st, summer solstice, longest day of the year, supposedly, and I have been sitting in this chair since 5:15 waiting for it to start looking like 1 now. I want to be clear, I'm not worried. I'm mentioning it because 3 of you have already texted the station number, and Vula from Calamaria called before I even had my coffee to ask why it's still dark. Vula, the answer is, I don't know yet. It was overcast yesterday. Could be heavy cloud cover rolling off the Gulf. We had that last September, remember? Fog so thick you couldn't see the White Tower from Aristotela Square. But September fog in June would be strange. The Weather Service had us at clear skies today. 29 degrees by noon. Full sun. The kind of day you complain about by 2 o'clock and miss by October. I pulled the forecast again 10 minutes ago. It hasn't been updated. Sunrise was supposed to be 5:58. We are now 24 minutes past that. I'm looking east through the studio window, which faces the Port Authority building across the street, and what I see is what I've been seeing since I arrived. A deep blue sky. Not black, not overcast. That dark, saturated blue you get about 40 minutes before dawn. Pre-dawn light, just locked in place. My producer, Dimitra, is on the phone with the Aristotle University weather station. She's giving me a look through the glass. That means they haven't answered yet. So, we wait. I'll play you something. This is Harris Alexio, because when the sun is late, you keep the coffee warm and the music honest. Back in a few minutes. 6:39. Still here. Still dark. I want to correct something. I said it could be heavy cloud cover, and I should not have guessed. Dimitra got through to the National Observatories Thessaloniki liaison, and here is what they said. I'm reading her note directly. Sky above Thessaloniki is clear to approximately 200 kilometers in all directions. No cloud formations consistent with light obstruction. Solar position confirmed nominal for date and time. Let me say that in plain language. The sky is clear, the sun is where it should be. The light just isn't getting here. I've been doing this show for 11 years. I taught history for 30 before that. I am not a scientist, and I'm not going to pretend I understand what that sentence means. But I can tell you what I see from this window. The street lights are still on. The automated ones, the ones that run on photosensors, they haven't switched off because the light level hasn't told them to. The city looks like it's 4:45 in the morning, and it's been looking like 4:45 in the morning for an hour. I just checked the ports and airports. Macedonia Airport is operating normally. Flights are departing. Navigation instruments are reading standard. But the pilots, and this is secondhand from Dimitra's cousin, who works ground crew, the pilots are commenting on it. They're saying the sky looks wrong from altitude. Not dark, exactly. Just not progressing. That word. Progressing. That's what's unsettling about this. It's not that the sky is dark the way night is dark. Night has a quality to it. Night belongs where it is. This looks like dawn that started and then stopped. Like someone pressed pause on a process that has never, in the history of this planet, paused. The phone lines are full now. I can see 23 calls holding. Dimitra is screening. I'll take a few after the break. If you're listening and you can see the sky from where you are, tell me what you see. Honestly, in your own words, we'll figure this out together. 6:51. I've taken 9 calls in the last 12 minutes. Let me summarize because the picture is getting interesting. Yanis from Evasmos says his neighborhood is calm but confused. People are standing on balconies, not panicking, just looking east with their coffee, waiting. He says it feels like the whole block is holding its breath. Maria from Panorama, which has a higher elevation, she's up on the hill, says she can see the full arc of the Thermaic Gulf, and the sky is uniformly that same deep indigo in every direction. Not darker in the west, not lighter in the east, no gradient at all. She said it looks like someone dipped the whole sky in ink and hung it up to dry. I thought that was well put. Costas, a fisherman calling from Paria, says something that gave me pause. He said the water is behaving normally. Tides are correct. Wind is light from the north, which matches forecast. Temperature on the water is 21 degrees, typical for late June. Everything is physically correct, except the light. He said his instruments don't know anything is wrong. That's the part that's hard to sit with. If this were an eclipse, there would be data. If it were atmospheric, there would be particulate readings, satellite imagery, something measurable between us and the sun that would explain the interruption. The observatory says the path is clear. I'm going to say something I've been thinking for 20 minutes and haven't said out loud yet. This might not be an obstruction. It might not be that something is blocking the light. It might be that the light is leaving the sun and not arriving. That somewhere between there and here, it just stops. I don't know what that means physically. I don't think anyone does yet. Dimitra is showing me her tablet. Greek national news has picked it up. It's not just Thessaloniki. Reports are coming in from Athens, Heraklion, Patras. The entire Greek mainland and islands are experiencing the same pre-dawn suspension. State television has interrupted programming, and there's a line scrolling across the bottom of the ERT feed that Dimitra is reading to me. She's translating the formal language into something faster. Civil Protection has activated advisory status, not emergency status. Advisory. They're telling people to remain calm, stay informed, and avoid unnecessary travel. I notice they haven't told people not to worry. They've told them to stay inside. 718. I need to update you on scale, and I need to do it carefully. This is not a Greek phenomenon. In the last 20 minutes, Dimitra and I have been monitoring wire services, EU emergency channels, and, I'll be honest, social media, which I normally refuse to read on air because it rots the conversation. But right now, social media is the fastest aggregator of eyewitness reports from multiple time zones. And what it's showing is this. The sun has not risen in any location east of approximately 30 degrees longitude. That's a rough line, and it's moving. As of 7:15 local time, dawn has failed to arrive across the eastern Mediterranean, the Middle East, East Africa, Eastern Europe, Western Russia, and the Indian subcontinent. Every location where sunrise should have already occurred is reporting the same thing. Pre-dawn light, indigo sky, no progression. Locations where it's still nighttime, Western Europe, the Americas obviously can't confirm or deny yet, but the astronomical community is now fully activated. The European Southern Observatory in Chile issued a statement 11 minutes ago. I'll read the key sentence. Solar output is within normal parameters. Photometric readings at all orbital monitoring stations confirm standard luminosity. The interruption of visible light delivery to Earth's surface does not correspond to any detectable change in solar behavior. The sun is working. The light is leaving. It's not arriving. I taught history for 30 years. I've read about eclipses that terrified ancient civilizations. I've read about the year without a summer in 1816, when Tambora's ash made the sky gray for months. I've read about the nuclear winter models, the impact winter theories, the Toba catastrophe hypothesis. Every single one of those events had a physical intermediary. Ash, debris, particulate, something between the source and the surface. This has nothing. The sky is clear and the sun is shining, and the light is not reaching us, and no instrument on Earth or in orbit can identify why. I want to tell you I'm handling this calmly, and I mostly am. My hands are steady. My voice sounds the way it always sounds. Dimitra would tell me if it didn't. She's ruthless about that. But there's a feeling in this room that I think is also in your kitchen, on your balcony, in your car if you're driving. It's the feeling of a process you've relied on every day of your life, simply not completing, not failing dramatically, not ending, just not finishing. The day started, it just didn't arrive. We're going to stay on the air. I'm canceling the music rotation. This is now continuous coverage. Stay with me. 7:44. 3 updates in quick succession. First, the Greek government has elevated from advisory to level 2 emergency coordination. Civil Protection has activated regional command centers across all 13 administrative regions. The Prime Minister's office is expected to issue a statement within the hour. Military installations are at heightened readiness, which is standard protocol for any unexplained national-scale event. None of this is alarming by itself. This is what institutions are supposed to do when something happens outside every model they have. Second, the European Commission has convened an emergency session of the Crisis Coordination Committee. This is the same body that activates during natural disasters. But I've been told, this is from a contact Dimitra has at the Hellenic Civil Protection Authority, that the meeting includes representatives from ESA, CERN, and the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts. The composition tells you this is not being treated as weather. Third, and this is the one that matters most to me personally, the response infrastructure is functioning. Power is on. Water is running. Cellular networks are operational, though traffic is extremely heavy. Hospital emergency rooms in Thessaloniki report normal capacity. Police report no significant incidents. The buses are running. I can see a number 23 going down Simiski Street right now with its interior lights on, and there are passengers aboard. I want to emphasize this because I think it matters. We are 2 hours past expected sunrise, and the city is working. People are going to work, some of them. The kiosks on the waterfront are open. I can see Thanasis setting up his couleery cart on the corner below my window, same as every morning. He's got his little radio on. I think he's listening to us. The systems are holding. The people are steady. The thing that's wrong is above us and beyond us, and for now, not touching anything except the light. For now. I keep saying that. I notice I keep saying that. 812. The Terminator line has crossed into Western Europe, and it's confirming what we feared. For those unfamiliar, the Terminator is the boundary between the lit and unlit halves of the Earth. The line where dawn happens. It sweeps westward as the planet rotates. Under normal conditions, it arrived in Thessaloniki at 5:58 this morning. It should have reached Paris by now, London shortly after. It has reached those cities. The Earth is rotating normally. The geometry is correct. But the Terminator is arriving empty. Paris is reporting the same indigo suspension as of 15 minutes ago. London will follow within the hour. The phenomenon is not regional. It's moving with the planet's rotation, which means it's not atmospheric. An atmospheric event would be fixed to a geography. This is fixed to the Sun-Earth relationship itself. BBC World Service has gone to continuous coverage. CNN International, Al Jazeera, NHK, every global outlet. The tone is careful. No one is using the word crisis yet on the institutional channels. The word I keep hearing is anomaly, as if it's a data point and not the complete absence of the thing that has powered every living system on this planet for 4 billion years. I'm sorry. That was more than I intended to say. Let me stay practical, what we know. The sun is functioning. The light is not reaching Earth's surface. No instrument can detect why. The phenomenon is global and moving with the Terminator. All other solar effects, heat radiation, gravitational influence, solar wind, appear unaffected. Only visible light delivery has ceased. What we don't know, everything else. I've been reading messages from listeners while talking, and one from a physics teacher in Tumba caught my eye. She writes, Nikos, if infrared is still arriving but visible light is not, then something is selectively filtering by wavelength. That's not an obstruction. That's a filter. Filters are built. I read that 3 times. I'm going to move on because I don't know what to do with it. But I wanted you to hear it. 8:39. I want to describe what I'm seeing because the descriptions coming in from listeners are diverging in interesting ways, and I think precision matters now. From the studio window, facing east-southeast toward the Thermaic Gulf, the sky is, and I want to be exact, a deep saturated violet blue. Not the blue of late twilight, not the blue of a clear night. It's richer than that, more pigmented. It looks like the sky at about 4:40 in the morning during midsummer. That specific 15-minute window when you can tell dawn is imminent. The blue has started to warm at the edges, but hasn't broken yet. That window has now lasted 3 hours. What's strange, what's making people uneasy beyond the obvious, is that this color should be transitional. Your eye knows this shade of sky. Your body has seen it 10,000 times, and every single time it was followed within minutes by orange, orange by gold, by the full spectrum of sunrise. Your nervous system is waiting for a transition that isn't coming. It's like hearing someone inhale and never exhale. The anticipation becomes its own kind of pressure. Maria from Panorama called back. She says the color is uniform now from horizon to horizon, and she used a word I want to share, heavy. She says the sky looks heavy, not like clouds, like the color itself has weight, like the blue is a substance rather than an absence. I walked to the window a moment ago and looked straight up. Directly overhead, you can still see stars. Dimmer than nighttime stars, the ambient blue drowns the fainter ones. But Vega is visible, and I think I can see Arcturus. Stars in deep blue and nothing else. No moon. It's set at 3:14 this morning. Here's what I'm struggling with. This color, this precise shade, it's beautiful. Under any other circumstance, if you stepped onto your balcony and saw this sky, you'd reach for your phone and photograph it. You'd post it somewhere with the word magical. It looks like the most gorgeous pre-dawn Thessaloniki has ever produced, and it will not end. That's the dissonance. That's what's sitting in my chest like a stone. It's beautiful and it's wrong, and the wrongness isn't visible. You have to know it to feel it. You have to remember what comes next to understand that nothing is coming. 9:03. Something has changed, and it's not the sky. Dimitra has been monitoring the Aristotle University automatic weather station throughout the broadcast. Air temperature at 6 a.m. was 19.4 degrees Celsius, which was normal. Without the sun, models predicted a slow decline, maybe a degree per hour, as the Earth continued radiating heat into space without replenishment. Standard nighttime cooling, essentially, persisting into daytime. That's not happening. At 9 a.m., the air temperature in Thessaloniki is 22.1 degrees. It's risen almost 3 degrees since sunrise should have occurred, and it's not just here. The Hellenic National Meteorological Service is showing temperature increases across every reporting station in Greece. Athens is up 2.8, Heraklion up 3.1, Ioannina, which is inland and mountainous and should be cooling faster, is up 2.4. The heat is not coming from above. There is no sunlight to deliver it. It's coming from somewhere else. Dimitra pulled soil temperature readings from the agricultural station in Sindos, west of the city. Surface soil temperature at 6 a.m., 20 degrees. Surface soil temperature at 9 a.m., 26.2. That's a 6-degree jump in 3 hours. In soil, without direct solar radiation, the ground is warming faster than the air. I want to be careful about what I say next because I don't want to speculate irresponsibly. But if the light is being filtered, if something is allowing infrared through but blocking visible wavelengths, as our physics teacher suggested, then the thermal energy is still arriving. We're being heated by a sun we can't see. The planet is absorbing energy it can't display. I need a moment. That's manageable for now. 22 degrees is a pleasant morning. But the rate of increase isn't slowing down, and if visible light is blocked while infrared passes through without opposition, we could be looking at thermal accumulation with no corresponding daylight cue to track it by. The air will feel warm, the sky will stay dark, and those two things will stop making sense together very soon. 9:31. I sent Dimitra to the waterfront 15 minutes ago with her phone on a live audio feed because something was reported in the harbor, and I want to relay what she's describing. The water in the Thermaic Gulf is glowing. I need to qualify that immediately. She says it's subtle. She says if the sun were up, you wouldn't see it at all. But in this unbroken pre-dawn darkness, looking out from the promenade near the concert hall, there is a faint luminescence in the water, not on the surface. Below it, a pale blue-green light, diffuse, as if the water itself is producing it from somewhere underneath. Her first thought was bioluminescence, algal bloom, disturbed plankton. Thessaloniki gets occasional noctiluca blooms in warm years, but she's saying this isn't that. Noctiluca flashes when disturbed. This is constant, steady, uniform across the entire visible surface of the harbor. And it's not just the harbor. She walked east along the promenade, and the glow extends as far as she can see toward the open gulf. She held her phone near the water's edge at the fishing pier. She says the glow is coming from deep, not the first meter or two, but further down, as if the seafloor itself is the source, and the water is merely transmitting it. I'm going to pause and tell you something. I've lived in Thessaloniki since I was 4 years old. I've walked that waterfront 10,000 times. I proposed to my wife on that promenade 40 years ago next month, under a sky that was a perfectly normal shade of pink and gold. I know that water. I know what it looks like in every season and every light, and I have never heard it described the way Dimitra is describing it right now. She says people are gathering, not fleeing. Gathering, dozens of people standing along the railing, looking down at the water the way you look at something you don't have a word for yet. She says, it's quiet. She says, the light is beautiful. She also said, and this is the detail I can't let go of, that the glow is brighter closer to the shore, as if whatever is producing it is not in the water. It's in the ground beneath the water, and the shallow edges are thinner, and the light comes through more easily there. The ground is warm, the water is glowing, the sky won't move. I don't think these are three separate things. 10:14. Dimitra is back in the studio. She looks the way I probably look, which is fine until you start thinking about it. I need to report what's happened in the last 40 minutes, because it happened fast. The harbor glow was not unique to the Thermaic Gulf. Within 20 minutes of Dimitra's waterfront report, we received calls from every coastal district in the prefecture, and then from inland. The glow is not confined to the water, it's in the ground. Panagis in Thermi called at 9:51 to say the stone patio behind his house was emitting a faint blue light from between the pavers. He thought something electrical had shorted underground. He touched the stone. It was warm, but not dangerously so. The light was steady, not flickering. It was coming from the stone itself, or from beneath it. There were 3 calls from the university campus within 5 minutes of each other. Students in the physics building reported the marble floors glowing, faint, like the ghost of a nightlight beneath the surface. One of them sent a photograph to the station. Dimitra showed it to me. It looks like the floor is backlit, like someone installed LEDs under the marble and set them to 1% brightness. Then Avasmos, then Stavropoli, then Pelaya, then reports from Athens hit the wire at 10:02, then Istanbul, then Cairo. The earth is glowing. I need to say that again because the sentence sounds insane, and it is not. The surface of the earth, rock, soil, concrete, pavement, sand, is emitting visible light from below. The wavelengths being reported are consistently in the blue-green range, 470 to 520 nanometers, which I'm reading from the physics department's preliminary spectral analysis shared on their public feed 11 minutes ago. The light is faint. You can see it in shadow. You can see it in the pre-dawn darkness we're trapped in. In direct sunlight, if we had any, it would be invisible, but we don't have any, so we can see it. And it's getting brighter, not quickly, not alarmingly, but measurably. The physics department estimated a 12% increase in surface luminosity over the last 30 minutes. If that rate holds, they say it will be visible in daylight equivalent conditions within 6 hours. Except daylight isn't coming, so we'll see it long before that. 10:38. Aristotle University's physics department has released a more detailed analysis, and I'm going to do my best to translate it accurately. The light being emitted from the ground is not bioluminescence. It's not chemiluminescence. It's not phosphorescence. Those are all processes where a specific chemical or biological reaction produces photons. What the instruments are showing is thermal radiation, the same kind of light that any warm object emits, but shifted into the visible spectrum at temperatures that should not produce visible light. Let me explain that. Everything warm glows. Your body glows. The walls of your house glow. But at normal temperatures, that glow is in the far infrared. Wavelengths your eyes can't detect. To glow visibly, an object needs to be heated to roughly 500 degrees Celsius. That's when you start to see a faint red. The ground in Thessaloniki is currently 28 degrees Celsius, and it's glowing blue-green. The physics department's language is cautious, but the implication is clear. The thermal radiation properties of matter at the Earth's surface have changed. The relationship between temperature and emitted wavelength, something described by a principle called Planck's law that has been constant since the universe began, is no longer behaving as expected. I read that paragraph 3 times before I said it out loud. Demetra read it twice more. We looked at each other. She shrugged, which is Demetra's way of saying, I'm not going to pretend I understand this, and neither should you. So I won't, but I'll tell you what it means practically. It means the ground you're standing on is converting its ordinary warmth into visible light. It means the warmer the ground gets, the brighter it will glow. It means the thermal energy still arriving from the invisible sun is feeding a process that is turning the entire surface of the Earth into a light source. The sun disappears from the sky and the Earth begins to shine. I don't know if that's beautiful or terrifying. I think it might be both and neither. 11:06. I'm going to tell you about the shadows because they're doing something to people, and I think you should hear it from someone who's trying to stay steady. When light comes from below, shadows point up. That sentence is simple. The reality is not. I walked outside the studio 5 minutes ago, just to the front step, just to see it with my own eyes instead of through a window. And I stood on Simiski Street and I looked at my shadow. It was me, projected onto the building wall behind me, stretching upward from my feet. My head shadow was higher than my actual head. The shadow of the street sign across the road pointed at the sky. Parked cars had dark shapes rising up from their roofs like chimneys made of nothing. I am not a superstitious man. I teach, I taught, the Enlightenment. I believe in reason and observation and the slow accumulation of understanding, and I'm telling you that seeing my shadow above me made my hands shake, not because it was dangerous, because it was wrong in a way that goes deeper than danger. Your shadow is supposed to be beneath you. You've looked down at it your entire life. It's been your companion on the ground since you were a child, and now it's climbing the walls. People are reacting. On Simiski, I saw a woman standing perfectly still, staring at her shadow on the second floor balcony across the street. A man walked quickly past me, and I noticed he was keeping his eyes down, not at the ground, which was glowing, but at his feet, as if maintaining contact with the one surface he could still trust. The children are handling it differently. I saw 2 kids near the kiosk, playing with their shadows, waving their arms and watching the dark shapes dance above them on the building facades. They were laughing. They don't have 40 years of accumulated assumption about where light comes from. They just see what is. Demetra says the psychology department at the university has already posted guidance. The shadow inversion is causing disproportionate distress relative to its actual danger level. They recommend people avoid prolonged observation of inverted shadows and focus on practical tasks. They say the disorientation is perceptual, not physical. That's true. I know that's true. But knowing it doesn't stop the shaking. I came back inside. I'm sitting down. Let me continue. 11:32, temperature update, and this one concerns me. Air temperature in Thessaloniki at 11:30 a.m. local, 27.8 degrees Celsius. Ground surface temperature, 34.1 degrees. The differential between ground and air is widening. The ground is warming faster because it's the receiving surf or whatever infrared energy is still arriving, and now it's converting that thermal energy into visible light, which means it's radiating in a spectrum never radiated in before, and the thermodynamic behavior of the entire surface is, I'm going to use the physics teacher's phrase, uncharacterized. What I can tell you in human terms is this: the pavement is warm underfoot, noticeably warm. Not hot. I'm not talking about summer asphalt that burns your feet. I'm talking about a warmth that feels like the ground has been sitting in full sun for 3 hours, which, in a sense, it has. It just hasn't been the kind of sun you can see. But here's the concern. Under normal conditions, the atmosphere redistributes heat, wind moves warm air, convection cycles regulate ground temperature, and, critically, the surface radiates excess heat back into space as infrared. That's how the planet doesn't cook. Thermal equilibrium. The physics department is suggesting that the shift in radiation properties may be affecting that equilibrium. If the ground is now converting thermal energy into visible light instead of re-emitting it as infrared, the cooling mechanism is altered. The energy is still being emitted, but in a wavelength the atmosphere handles differently. Visible light passes through the atmosphere more easily than infrared, doesn't get trapped by greenhouse gases the same way. So, in theory, the planet should actually be cooling faster in some respects, but it's not. And the department ends with a sentence that I think is the most honest thing a scientific institution has said all day. Current models do not account for this configuration. We cannot predict the thermal trajectory with any confidence. They can't tell us if it's going to keep getting warmer or level off or reverse. Because this has never happened, there is no data. There is no model. There is a city full of people standing on warm, glowing ground under a sky that won't change, and the best minds in the building next door are telling us they don't know what happens next. I respect that honesty more than I can say. 12:04, midday technically, though the word barely applies. I want to give you an infrastructure report because I think it's important to hear what's working. Power grid, fully operational. Greece's electricity generation is diversified. Solar is a significant component, and those panels are obviously producing nothing right now, but the gas and wind and hydroelectric components have compensated. ADME, the grid operator, issued a statement at 11:15 confirming stable supply through at least the next 24 hours. They've requested reduced industrial consumption as a precaution, not a necessity. Water, normal. Municipal supply, unaffected. The desalination plants on the islands are functioning. No contamination alerts. Transportation, running. Macedonia Airport has shifted to full instrument operations, treating conditions as equivalent to heavy fog. Flights are departing and arriving. Trains are operating on schedule. The metro is packed, more packed than usual, because people are moving toward the center of the city, toward other people. Hospitals, operating normally. Admissions are up slightly, anxiety-related, some fainting, a handful of traffic accidents in the first hour when the darkness confused drivers. Nothing systemic. Communications, strained but functional. Cellular networks are congested. The 112 emergency line had a 20-minute wait period at 8 a.m. that has since been reduced to 3 minutes. Internet is slow but accessible. The institutions are working. I want to say that clearly and without qualification. The people staffing the power plants and hospitals and airports and emergency lines are doing their jobs under conditions that no training manual ever described. They deserve acknowledgement. They deserve more than acknowledgement. They deserve to hear someone say, "You are holding the structure together, and we can feel it." There's a criticism I've heard on social media, and this is why I normally avoid reading it on air, that the government isn't doing enough. I want to push back on that, gently. What would enough look like? The sun hasn't risen. No government caused that. No government can fix it. What they can do is keep the systems running while we figure out what's happening, and that is what they are doing. This isn't a failure of response. This is a species encountering a phenomenon that exceeds every framework it has, and the scaffolding is holding. If nothing else comes of this day, I want that recorded. The scaffolding held. Now, Dimitra is pointing at the window. Something is different outside. Let me look. 12:28. I've been staring out the window for 3 minutes, and I need to describe this. The ground light is no longer faint. When Dimitra reported it from the harbor 3 hours ago, she said you had to look for it, that it was subtle, ambient, easy to miss. That is no longer the case. The street outside the studio is illuminated, not brightly, not like daylight, but the way a room looks when you leave one lamp on across the hall. A soft, directionless blue-green wash of light rising from every surface. The pavement glows, the building walls glow, at least the lower floors, where the stone makes contact with the ground. The trees in the planters along Samiski are casting those inverted shadows more distinctly now. Dark shapes, rising up from their canopies like photographic negatives. The water in the puddle by the storm drain, yesterday's watering runoff, is luminous, a bright blue-green circle on the asphalt. I can read by this light. I just tested it. I held a newspaper at arm's length, and I could make out the headlines. The light is coming from below, and the paper was legible from the underside, lit from where my lap was. Reading a newspaper illuminated by the ground, and the quality of the light, this is what I didn't expect, is gentle. It's not harsh. It's not the cold flicker of fluorescent tubes or the sharp assault of LED panels. It's warm in tone, despite being blue-green in color, if that makes any sense. It feels like the light you'd imagine inside a cave with living walls. Organic, patient, steady. People are out. More people than I expected. When I walked to the door a moment ago, Simiskishfort had foot traffic that looked, I'm trying to find the right comparison, like a summer evening, like 9 p.m. on a warm Saturday. People walking slowly, talking, some carrying shopping bags, some sitting at the cafes that have stayed open, drinking frap under the glow. There is a surreality to this that no amount of reporting can fully convey. The sky is deep indigo, the ground is glowing, the shadows point up, the temperature is 28 degrees and rising slowly, and people are having coffee. I don't know if that's denial or resilience or something else entirely. I think it might just be Thessaloniki. 12:51. Photographs are arriving from everywhere now, and they are changing the texture of this event. A listener forwarded images from a contact in Luxor, Egypt. The desert floor is glowing. The sand around the Valley of the Kings is emitting a diffuse amber light different from our blue-green. Someone, physics harassment's warmer, which the physics department tells me corresponds to the different mineral composition of the substrate. Limestone and granite glow differently than the schist and gneiss under Thessaloniki. The color of the light depends on what the earth is made of. That detail matters, because it means this isn't a uniform phenomenon, producing a single color. It's an interaction. The energy is arriving, and the local geology is responding with its own specific emission spectrum. The earth is glowing in its own palette, determined by its own composition. The photographs from Luxor look like the desert has been lit by a warm lantern from within. Our harbor looks like someone dissolved sapphires in the Thermaic Gulf. Images from Istanbul show the Hagia Sophia's stone foundation emitting a pale, milky luminescence that rises about a meter up the walls. The building looks like it's standing in a pool of its own light. Dimitra showed me that photograph, and neither of us says anything for about 10 seconds. Mumbai. The marine clay beneath the city is glowing a deep greenish white. Tokyo, volcanic substrate producing an orange-red glow that people are calling like lava without heat. Sao Paulo, and this is a report, not yet confirmed, says concrete is responding, not as brightly as natural stone, but the aggregate within the concrete, the crushed rock component, is emitting a faint glow of its own. Everything that was once stone, or is still stone, or contains stone, is shining. The BBC is calling it the brightening. I don't know who coined the term, but it's sticking. It appeared on 3 separate news feeds within 20 minutes of the first use. The brightening, as if it needs a name to be managed, as if naming it gives us some authority we don't actually have. I'll use the word because it's useful. The brightening is accelerating. The 12% per hour rate the physics department estimated 3 hours ago appears to be holding, or slightly increasing. If it holds, the ground light will match early daylight conditions by late afternoon. By evening, it will exceed it. We will have a well-lit world with no sun in it, a world illuminated from below by its own substance, warm and glowing and gently hostile to every visual assumption the human brain was built on. I need to take a break. 2 minutes. Dimitra will hold the feed, 1:17. I'm back. I had some water. I washed my hands until they were steady. Let me continue. The European Commission's emergency session has concluded, and the published summary is being reported across all channels. I'll give you the substance without the diplomatic padding. They are not recommending evacuation. The reasoning is arithmetical, not political, and I think it's honest. Evacuate to where? The phenomenon is global. Every surface on Earth is responding. There is no location to evacuate to that has a functioning sun and non-luminescent ground. Moving people from cities to countrysides changes nothing about the fundamental conditions, and risks the transportation infrastructure in the process. Instead, the Commission is recommending what they're calling adaptive continuation, maintain normal social and economic function as far as possible, prioritize medical and power infrastructure, and wait for the scientific community to establish whether the phenomenon is stable, escalating, or reversible. I want to note that the word reversible appeared in a formal EU emergency document. That implies they're considering the possibility that it might not be, that this might not end. The Greek government is following the EU framework. Civil protection is maintaining level 2 coordination. Schools are closed Monday as a precaution. Non-essential government offices will operate on reduced schedules. The military remains on heightened readiness, but has not been deployed domestically. The Minister for Climate Crisis, and yes, that is an actual cabinet position, and yes, the irony is not lost on anyone, held a press conference at 12:45 and said something I thought was remarkably direct. We are in a situation without precedent, without model, and without timeline. The government's role at this stage is to keep the infrastructure running and avoid making the uncertainty worse with premature action. That's not nothing. That's a public official saying, "We don't know," on camera, and I think more of that would serve everyone well right now. The practical questions are mounting, though. Agriculture, solar energy, circadian biology, sleep cycles, vitamin D synthesis, photosynthesis. Every plant on Earth runs on visible light. If this continues for days, the crops don't die immediately. Most can tolerate short darkness periods, but the stress responses begin within 48 hours. After a week, the agricultural implications become severe. Nobody is saying that on the news yet. They're focused on the spectacle, the photographs, the glow, the inverted shadows, and I understand the spectacle is extraordinary, but underneath the spectacle is a clock that counts in chlorophyll and root systems and grain yields, and that clock is ticking whether or not we're watching it. I'm watching it. I thought you should be too. 1:44. I did something I probably shouldn't have. I left the studio. Demetra's covering the feed. I told her I needed 10 minutes. I walked 4 blocks to the Modiano market because I needed to see what 100 years of commercial survival instinct looks like under conditions like this. The market is open. I need you to hear that. The Modiano market, which has survived 2 world wars, a military junta, an economic crisis, and a complete architectural renovation, is open on the day the sun didn't rise. The iron and glass structure is glowing from the floor up, that pale blue-green emission filtering through the restored stone pavers, turning the interior into something that looks like an aquarium, lit from beneath. Vendors are working, not all of them, maybe 60%, but the fish counter is staffed, the spice stalls are open. An old man, whose name I should know and don't, was arranging dried herbs in glass jars, and the light coming through the jars from below made each one look like a lantern. He saw me staring and said, "It's still oregano, Nico. It doesn't care what the sky is doing." The market was busy, not packed, but populated. People were buying bread, vegetables, cheese. Some of them were talking about the brightening, obviously. A group near the olive stand was watching a phone screen, showing the photographs from Istanbul. But most of them were just shopping, making their Saturday purchases, deciding between the feta from Epirus and the one from Lesbos. I stood in the center of the market hall on the main walkway, and I looked up through the glass ceiling. Deep indigo, unmarked, unchanging. I looked down. The floor glowed beneath my shoes. I looked at the people around me, moving through a space lit entirely from below, their faces illuminated from an angle that human faces have never been routinely illuminated from under lighting. The angle of campfire stories and horror films, and they looked strange and familiar at the same time. There was a woman buying tomatoes whose face was lit from beneath, and the shadows under her cheekbones made her look like a painting. A child sitting on the floor, playing with a toy car, was surrounded by the glow like a kid sitting on a lit stage. A butcher in a white apron had the light coming up through the fabric, and his whole torso looked faintly luminous. I bought a koulouri, sesame bread ring, the kind Thessaloniki runs on. I ate it walking back to the studio. It tasted exactly the way it always tastes. The world tastes the same. It just looks like a different planet. I'm back at the microphone now. Demetra says nothing critical happened while I was gone. The brightening continues. 2:12. I need to say something personal. I'll keep it short. I've lived in this city for 61 years. I was born in Drama, in eastern Macedonia, but my parents brought me here when I was 4, and I've never seriously considered leaving. I taught at the 6th Lyceum for 30 years. I married a woman from Halkidiki who tolerated my enthusiasm for Ottoman-era municipal records and the sound of my own voice on the radio. She died 3 years ago, Eleni. She would have had something precise and impatient to say about all of this, and I miss her voice today more than most days. I say this because I want you to understand the position I'm speaking from. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a scientist. I'm a retired teacher who talks into a microphone on Saturday mornings because the alternative is sitting alone in a flat that still smells like the coffee she used to make. I do this show because I like this city and I like the people in it and I like the sound a community makes when it talks to itself honestly. This morning, that sound is different. Not panicked, not despairing, but altered. There's a frequency underneath the conversations I've been having all day, the calls, the interviews, the reports, that I can only describe as searching. People are looking for the frame, the explanatory structure that makes this manageable. And it's not arriving any more than the sun is. I'm not going to provide one. I don't have one. No one does. What I can tell you is that I've spent my career teaching students about the moments when civilizations encountered the incomprehensible. The plague of Athens, the Lisbon earthquake, the first photographs of Earth from space. And the thing I always told them, the thing I believed and still believe, is that the species survives these moments not because it understands them in time, but because it refuses to stop functioning while it waits for understanding. The market is open, the buses are running, the hospitals are staffed, the power is on. And I'm sitting here talking to you because somebody should be, and I have a microphone and a window and 61 years of stubbornness. I don't know why the sun didn't rise. I don't know why the ground is glowing. I don't know if it will stop or get worse or become something else entirely. I know that my shadow is above me and my city is beneath me, and both of them are still here. Let me check the instruments. The brightening has continued. Demetra has something new. 308. The acceleration has increased. I need to give you numbers because the visual change in the last hour has been dramatic, and numbers anchor things when perception starts to slide. At 1 p.m., surface luminosity, as measured by the university's photometer array, was approximately 8 lux. That's equivalent to deep twilight, the light level at which you can read large print, but colors become uncertain. That was already remarkable. At 2 p.m., it was 19 lux, equivalent to a very dark, overcast day or a well-lit hallway. At 3 p.m. 6 minutes ago, it reached 41 lux. That's the light level of a fully overcast afternoon. And I can confirm this perceptually. Looking out the studio window, the street is now clearly visible, not in the tentative, blue-washed way it was this morning. The ground light is strong enough now that I can see the full color of objects, the red of the kiosk awning, the green of the trees, the yellow of the taxi rank, all of it lit from below. The color palette of the brightening is shifting as it intensifies. At low levels, it was uniformly blue-green. Now, as the luminosity increases, the emission spectrum is broadening. Warmer tones are appearing. The pavement has an amber undertone. The marble facades are shifting toward a pale gold. It's as if the ground is running through the color temperature spectrum in fast forward, starting at cool moonlight and progressing toward, I don't know, toward sunlight maybe, toward the full spectrum. If the acceleration holds, and there's no indication it won't, we'll hit full daylight equivalent by evening, maybe sooner. The exponential curve the physics department projected at 10 a.m. this morning is tracking almost perfectly. The ground temperature is now 38.5 degrees. Warm, not dangerous, but insistent. Walking on pavement barefoot would be uncomfortable. Demetra says the weather service has issued a heat advisory. I almost laughed at the absurdity of a heat advisory on a day with no sun, but the advisory is sensible. The heat is real. The source is unprecedented. But the effect on the human body doesn't care about epistemology. Stay hydrated. Stay in shade if the ground heat bothers you. The fact that I'm giving practical advice about managing heat from a sunless sky on a Saturday afternoon in June is something I'll process later. Right now, the practical matters. The luminosity is still climbing, and something else has started. 3:26. I need you to be quiet for a moment. If you're listening on headphones, take one out. If you're in a room, stop what you're doing and listen. There's a sound. Demetra heard it first, about 8 minutes ago. She held up her hand in the middle of my sentence and pointed at the floor. I stopped talking. At first I heard nothing. Then I felt it, a vibration in the soles of my feet, a low-frequency pressure that was less a sound than a physical presence, like standing next to a large engine that's idling several rooms away. Then it became audible, a hum, deep, steady, continuous, not mechanical, not electrical. There's no periodicity to it, no rhythm of rotation or combustion. It's more like a tone, a sustained note at the very bottom of what human hearing can register. I'd estimate somewhere around 30 to 40 hertz. You don't hear it with your ears so much as feel it in your chest cavity. It's coming from below. Like everything else today, it's coming from below. I pressed my palm against the studio wall. The vibration is there. Demetra put her hand on the floor. It's stronger in the floor. The building is resonating. Not dangerously. The fixtures aren't shaking. The water in my glass has a faint concentric ripple pattern, but it's not sloshing. It's a gentle, pervasive thrumming that has entered every solid surface in the room. I've gotten 11 calls in 6 minutes, all reporting the same thing. People can feel it in their apartments. The dishes are humming in the cabinets. A caller from the old town said the ancient Byzantine walls are vibrating and producing a resonance in the stone that sounds, she said, like the building is breathing. Like the building is breathing. I wrote that down. The hum is not getting louder as far as I can tell. It's steady, it started at a specific intensity, and it's holding there. But its presence changes the entire sensory environment. The glowing ground already made the world feel altered. The inverted shadows made it feel wrong. The hum makes it feel active, as if everything we've been observing today, the arrested dawn, the thermal shift, the luminescence, wasn't a malfunction. It was a process arriving at a new stage. The ground is warm and bright, and now it's speaking. I don't know to whom. 4:01. I'm watching something from the window that I need to describe. People are going up. It started about 20 minutes ago, and at first I thought it was isolated. A few people on the building across the street climbing to the rooftop terrace, probably to get a better view of the glow, the sky, the strangeness. But Demetra pulled up a live camera feed from the waterfront, and it's happening everywhere. People are moving to rooftops, to upper floors, to balconies, to any elevated position they can reach. It's not organized. No one announced it. No authority recommended it. It's instinctive. The ground is warm, glowing. The ground is vibrating, and people are moving away from it, not fleeing. The movement is calm, deliberate, almost casual. Families carrying blankets and water bottles up stairwells. Neighbors propping open rooftop access doors that are usually locked. The cafe below the studio has moved its tables to the second floor balcony. It looks like the whole city is rising one story. Like Thessaloniki is gently levitating itself away from its own foundations by the only means available, by climbing. From up here, the studio is on the third floor. I can see dozens of rooftops now populated. People sitting in lawn chairs, standing at railings, clustered in small groups. Some have brought food. Some have brought radios. A man on the roof directly across from me has set up a telescope pointed at the sky, which is still that unwavering indigo, though the ground light now casts a faint blue-gold wash upward that tints the lower atmosphere. The children are up there, too. I can see a girl on neighboring rooftop, maybe 8 or 9 years old, lying on her stomach at the edge, looking down at the street below, looking at the glow. Her face is lit from beneath in that amber gold the pavement is producing now, and she looks entranced rather than afraid. I think about what my students would have done with this. I think about The questions they would have asked, the theories they would have spun, the arguments they would have had, I think they would have been better equipped than any of us. Not because they knew more, but because they hadn't yet decided what was impossible. The hum continues. The light builds. The city climbs. Demetra is pointing at the southern window. Something on the horizon. 422. I want to tell you what's happening with this broadcast before I tell you what's on the horizon, because the two things may be connected in a way I didn't expect. We're a small station, 98.4 FM, community license, range of maybe 30 kilometers on a good day. Our usual listenership on a Saturday morning is somewhere between 3 and 8,000 people, depending on weather and whether I'm being interesting. Demetra just showed me the streaming numbers. The online feed, which we set up mostly for elderly listeners who couldn't tune the analog signal, has been shared across Greek social media, then European media, then global aggregator sites. We have, as of 4:15 p.m. local time, over 2 million concurrent listeners on the stream. 2 million people listening to a retired history teacher in Thessaloniki describe the ground glowing. I don't say this to boast. I say it because something has happened today that I need to articulate. In a world full of massive news networks with correspondents and satellite trucks and experts on retainer, 2 million people chose to listen to a man who sells no expertise, holds no authority, and offers nothing but the view from one window on one street in one city. I think I know why. I think it's because the big networks are doing what they're supposed to do, aggregating data, interviewing officials, showing satellite imagery, and all of that is useful. But none of it sounds like a person. None of it sounds like a neighbor leaning over the balcony railing and saying, "Are you seeing this?" That's all I've been doing. That's all this has ever been. A man at a microphone talking to his city, while the city talks back. And now the city, this rooftop-covered, gently humming, luminous city, has a lot more people listening than it used to. I want to honor that. I want to be worth the attention. So let me tell you what I'm seeing on the southern horizon, which Demetra flagged 3 minutes ago, and which I've been watching through the studio's south-facing window. There is a brightness there that is different from the ground light. It's concentrated, directional, a band of intensifying luminosity low on the horizon, bearing approximately 180 degrees. Due south, that is not where the sun should be. At 4 p.m. on June 21st, the sun should be in the western part of the sky, not due south, not on the horizon. Something is there, it's getting brighter, and it isn't coming from the ground. 4:38. The band of light on the southern horizon has intensified dramatically in the last 16 minutes. I'm watching it now through both the studio window and the live waterfront camera feed, and the entire southern sky is changing. The indigo, that permanent, locked-in, unyielding indigo that has defined this entire day, is breaking. Along the southern horizon, it's being infiltrated by color. Pale gold at the base, shading upward into rose, into copper, into a deep amber that blends with the indigo above. It looks like a sunrise. It has the full chromatic structure of a sunrise, the banded layers, the warm to cool gradient, the sense of light pressing upward from behind the curvature of the earth. But it's coming from the south, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon. The rooftops I can see are all oriented toward it now. Every face is turned south. The city that spent 10 hours looking down at its glowing ground is now looking up toward the horizon, toward whatever is producing this light. The hum has changed. It's not louder, but the frequency has shifted, risen slightly, as if something tightened. The vibration in the walls feels less like idling and more like anticipation. I don't know how a vibration in stone can feel like anticipation, but it does. Demetra is standing at the window. She hasn't sat down in 4 minutes. I'm going to keep talking, because that's what I do. That's what this is for. 4:44, I'm going to describe what I see as I see it. I may not be able to maintain any structure beyond that. The light on the southern horizon has coalesced into a point, a source, an object. It's above the horizon now, maybe 2 degrees of arc, and it's rising. It's bright enough to cast shadows. Real shadows pointed north, flat on the ground, the way shadows are supposed to look. For the first time in almost 11 hours, I have a shadow beneath my feet. It's rising faster than the sun rises. It cleared the horizon in what felt like 2 minutes. It's disc-shaped. It's luminous. It's the right color, that warm white gold that sunlight has when it's just above the tree line. But it's not in the right position. Due south. The sun should not be due south at this latitude at any time of year. And I need to say this carefully, there is a second light, to the left of the first, east-southeast, smaller or farther away, or both. Same color, same disc shape. It's rising on a parallel track, maybe 10 degrees away from the first. The rooftops are audible now. I can hear people through the closed window, not screaming, not cheering, a sound I don't have a word for, a collective vocalization that is neither panic nor joy, something between a gasp and a hymn. Dimitra just grabbed my arm. She's pointing at the ground. The glow is responding. The ground light, which has been building all day, is pulsing. Not erratically, rhythmically, slowly, like a heartbeat, like the ground is answering the sky. Two night lights rising in the south, the ground pulsing beneath us, the hum ascending in pitch. I need to keep talking. 4:49. The two light sources have cleared the horizon fully and are climbing the southern sky in tandem. The ground light has intensified to the point where the entire city is illuminated from both above and below. I can see it on the faces of the people on the rooftops, lit from beneath by the gold amber glow of the pavement, and from above by the warm light of two objects that should not exist in our sky. The shadows are doubled. Each person has two shadows, stretching in slightly different directions, overlapping, shifting as the sources climb. The waterfront camera shows the Thermaic Gulf blazing, the water lit from below by the seafloor glow, and from above by the twin lights, the entire surface a sheet of living gold. The hum has become a chord. Two frequencies now, intertwined, resonating through every surface in the city. The windows are vibrating. I can feel it in my teeth. The indigo sky is retreating overhead, pushed back by the advancing light from the south, and in its place is a color I've never seen. Not blue, not gold, but something between them that my language doesn't have a name for. I'm standing at the window now. Dimitra is standing next to me. The microphone is on the desk behind us, and I don't care. Let it hear the room. Let it hear the hum and the sound from the rooftops and whatever I manage to say from here. They're still climbing, both of them. The sky is God, the sky is... I've spent my whole life talking. 30 years of lectures, 11 years of Saturday mornings. I've always had the sentence, I've always found the words. I don't have words for what I'm looking at. I don't think anyone does. I think this is the part where language was always going to fall short, and the only honest thing left is to hold the microphone toward the window and let you hear what Thessaloniki sounds like when it sees something for the first time. Dimitra is laughing. I think I am too. The microphone is open. The channel is yours.